Thank you for being here with us for another one of our webinars. I'm here today with my colleague Isabelle Lapointe, and who's an emailing expert for many, many years, and me, myself, Selma Aboudou, who's also an emailing expert at CakeMail. Today, we're going to be going over more about the essentials of email marketing, and we're mostly going to jump onto content and design. Now, right off the bat, we're going to be starting off with the different types of emails and the different types of content you could be sending, your subject line and our best tips to optimize it, how to optimize your pre-header, your sender, and just how important it is for you, anti-spam laws that we have in place and that you need to be abiding by, how to choose a proper template to display your content, what's your brand consistency, customizing your content, various graphic elements such as emojis, videos, and images, and how they can play into your campaign. And finally, testing on mobile and dark mode. Now, let's just start off with all the different types of emails and the different types of content you could be sending us. I just want to preview the fact that this all depends on your tone and the different types of content you want to convey to your audience. So it all depends on your vision and where you want to go with your campaigns. But for example, you could be sending out newsletters with different updates, latest news, anything that tells us something about your organization or your company. And the good thing about newsletters, the main point really is that they're regular. They're based on regularity. So you'd be either sending them monthly, weekly, bi-weekly. It all again depends on your tone and how you wish to convey your information to your audience. You could also be sending out promotional offers, sort of as a gift or a way to thank your subscribers for being part of your subscribing list. You could be sending out discount codes, specials, coupons, anything of the sort, just to grab their attention and have them be more engaged with your content. You could also be sending out new products or services updates, anything that like latest updates, new releases, new products, anything of the sorts, as well as events invitations. For example, we must have received the conference or webinar link to today's webinar, anything of the sorts. You could also just be sending educational content such as guides, recordings of tutorials. It all essentially depends on your vision and again, your brand identity and what you're conveying to your contacts. Now, there are the very important part about content and design and just sending out your campaign as a whole is to target and link between all the different elements in your brand. You can use your campaign as a way to leverage all the tools that you have accessible to you to just boost your engagement with your subscribers. For example, let's say you have a blog. You're sending out a campaign to sort of boost all the traffic that goes towards that blog. You could be inserting article introductions into it, links to your website to move traffic towards your website, use visual elements that represent your brand, images, videos, anything of the sorts. You could also be using headlines, just big, bold titles that tell us what this is about, who you are, and that obviously fits with your identity as a whole. If you have multiple contents or long newsletters, you could be using lists, just sort of as having bullet points, just to have a little way to sum up everything that's going to be happening or presented in your campaign. And finally, keywords. Some people might not be reading all of it, so they need to be able to catch a few keywords here and there just to understand the global meaning of your campaign without necessarily having to read all of it. Just getting the gist of it and be as engaged as possible with your content. Now, when it comes to engaging with your audience through campaigns, your subject line and your pre-headers are probably some of the most important elements because they're the first things that are going to catch the attention of your reader. Now, as you can see on the little picto, you have 3 different titles that you look at straight as you receive your content. The first one would be your sender name. That's the big one in bold that tells us who is sending the campaign. For example, your name, your organization's name, association, or anything of the sorts. It's big and bold, and it's the first thing your eyes are gonna go to. Right under that would be your subject line, and it's essentially just a catchphrase or a catchline that just gets your attention, your reader's attention, and really gets them curious about what's coming in the content of your campaign. Finally, you would have your pre-header, the little title in a less bold font, and that's essentially a preview. Now we're gonna dive deeper into this, but this is just to give you a little idea of what that looks like. For your subject line, we do have a few tips that we'd like to share with you. First of all, you have to be clear and concise about what it is and what you're saying. You need to state the purpose of your email and just sort of arouse the curiosity of your audience without exaggerating or lying or adding too many elements to it. Keep it short, and we generally recommend aiming for a maximum of 9 words, so approximately 60 characters, no more, just to keep it as engaging as possible. As I said before, concise, so definitely opt for powerful and more emotional words or action-oriented verbs. For example, check this out, check out our newsletter, subscribe to our content, anything that tells people to go and take action when reading your campaign. You can also we also recommend to avoid anything that may seem suspicious. Now, that's the thing with emails. Unfortunately, we're overwhelmed with all amounts of emails with spam, and sometimes your subject line might look fishy to some people. For example, excessive capital letters or exclamation points, anything that tells us urgent or make money fast, anything that may seem suspicious and make people doubt your legitimacy as a sender. Now, the use of the pre-header, also very important. We did talk about it earlier, but it essentially allows you to add relevant information to the subject line. It works sort of as a completing element, and it also serves as a preview. It tells us some of the things that your campaign is going to be about. Now, keep in mind that it does display differently depending on what tool you're using. For example, if you're on mobile or desktop, it might display differently, and therefore it shouldn't contain any crucial information. For example, you wouldn't be putting your promotional code in that little sentence. You would maybe keep it for something else, just anything that might miss out on display. We recommend usually to keep it between 30 and 80 characters, so keep it short, just like the subject line, and focus on essential information right at the beginning. Now, I've put a few examples of what the pre-header might look like, and as you can see, some of them are on mobile and some of them are on laptop, and they just look differently. For example, words are cut at certain places, your dark mode versus light mode, it all displays differently depending on what you're using. So just keep that in mind, and keep in mind that you might have to try out a few things, send yourself a few tests just to get the grip of it and make sure that it's as optimal as it can be. Now, a very important point, and I cannot say enough, your sender is probably the most important thing about sending out your campaign. And now more than ever, especially following the latest updates back in February by Google and Yahoo, you now have to authenticate your domain. You have to make sure that it's a legitimate sender, it's a legitimate domain, and that it just represents you as a whole. We have a few advice to give you regarding that. For example, you do have to be clear, explicit, and consistent with your domain. For example, keep your name, your organization's name, your business name, anything that tells us at that'syou.com. You do not want to be using a free web email account. We really recommend against public domains because they just do not really tell us who you are, and they do not necessarily represent your brand either. We recommend also authenticating it. I've said it before, and we're going to be diving deeper into that. But you need to authenticate your domain using all the different protocols that are in place. So SPF, DKIM, DMARC, anything that makes sure that authenticates your domain and tells us you're a legitimate sender. We also do not recommend more than 30 characters. Always go for domains that are somewhat shorter. and it must be registered for at least 30 days prior to sending, and should not contain any unnecessary dashes, points, or so on. Just essentially try to keep it simple, keep it to your website's domain, keep it to something that tells us just who you are. Now, there are a few anti-spam laws in place that you absolutely need to abide by before sending your campaign. Here in Canada, we have the Castle Law, and it is based on three main elements. The first one being permission and proof. When people subscribe to your content, you need to have their permission first thing first. They need to consent to receiving content from you, and you need to be able to provide a proof of their consent. Second of all, you need a physical address. For example, at the footer of your email, you would have maybe your company's address, your living address, just something that tells us there is a physical address linked to you. And finally, an unsubscribe link. People need to be able to opt out of your communications if they wish to. So you need to provide an unsubscribe link in all of your campaigns. Now, essentially what this law is about making sure people consent and have the option to opt in and out of your campaigns if they wish to. In the United States, the equivalent to that would be the CAN-SPAM. Now, when it comes to creating your campaign, I think the most fun part is definitely your template choice. There are so many templates you get to choose from nowadays. You have the different designer models, different designer templates, different things that you could do. You can either pick out a simple HTML code. There is so much to do, but I would just like you to keep you in mind that there are norms and different protocols in place for all email providers. So the way your template looks is crucial because depending on how it's formatted, it might not display the right way. Now, a few tips when it comes to choosing your template. The big one would be brand consistency. We've been talking about it since earlier. Your tone, your vision, and your brand image and consistency are very crucial elements. Your newsletter needs to reflect who you are as a sender, and it needs to fit your brand. For example, here I've added a few examples. For example, for Cake Mail, we're a very purple theme, so naturally our fonts will more likely be purple. For example, if your brand image is more towards red, deeper colors, then make sure you adjust your newsletter accordingly, and just make sure you adjust generally with all your different visual elements. When it comes to customizing your content, it's probably one of the best ways to just engage directly with your contacts. You need to be able to leverage all the information you have about your contacts and just display it in your email. Make sure that you personalize your content. For example, here I've used the name. I can use all kinds of different elements you could be sending out to your audience on their birthdays. It's all information that is very important and that you need to leverage in order to really get there with your contacts and really engage with them deeply. Use images, videos, and even emojis. Now, as you can see, I do have a thing for cats. And over here, as you can see on this little display, I have emojis, different titles, fonts and sizes, images, anything of the sort, anything that just really attracts your attention towards the content of the email. So you can try out anything you want, anything that really suits your vision and suits your tone. You can use emojis, you can just use all kinds of visual elements to really grasp the attention of your contacts. One thing though is you definitely have to keep in mind that the way these things display on your normal and dark mode are not the same, and sometimes it can be really unpredictable. For example, here I have a few light colors. In dark mode, those are going to turn darker. The titles, they're not going to be black anymore, they're going to turn white. So we really just recommend playing with different combinations of colors and titles, just to make sure that at the end of the day, your campaign is displayed properly and in a way that you're satisfied with. Now let's just move on to a demo. As you can see, I'm logged into my my cake mail account. I have a little cat store because I do have a thing for cats. And today I'm going to be working on a campaign for my cat shop. Now, right off the bat, what you want to do, this is your dashboard. You can just pick out anything. You can click on create, or you can go to campaigns. Just gonna go to campaigns. And something I really like to do, since we've talked earlier about brand consistency, in CakeMail, you're able to import your brand, meaning that you can import your colors, you can import your logos, and you can use smart templates that are already pre-designed to fit this brand image. For example, I'm just going to go off with a promotional offer this time. And I'm going to pick one that's already designed with my logo in mind, with my colors in mind, and everything. Like, oopsie. Sometimes my internet plays tricks on me, so I will have to click again and select the template. Now, when you want to import your, okay. So as I was saying, you can import your different elements. Here, as you can see, I already imported my logo. I have already imported all my colors, everything that just screams my brand. Now, as you can see, this is the editor where you can basically create your campaigns, pick out different templates, different things. Today I picked a smart template, but it could have been any other templates. We have a great choice of designer templates that are already pre-designed with colors that you can personalize to your liking and adjust as you see fit. Now, I'm just going to drag your attention quickly to the right side of the screen, where you can see all the different elements that will allow you to personalize and modify your template. Over here, on the far right, is your settings. Now, your settings are just your general properties, the width of your content area. You can either make it bigger or you can make it smaller. It all depends on your liking and how you want it to display. You can choose the alignment of your text, whether you want it centered, towards the left. It all depends. You can change your background color. Right now I have it as white, but I could have it as blue. I could have it as any other color. Your content area background, if you wish to keep it, if you want to keep this part transparent, you can. And you could as well just, import a background image. Say you have a picture and you want to have that as a background. You simply have to copy paste the URL or choose your image within your library and import it. Obviously, what I always recommend is just really playing around with things, because you have so many different options and so many different features that it's just really fun to play around with. You can just try out different things and see how that looks and how that reflects in your emails. Now, we did talk earlier about a very important point, and it's pre-headers. Now, when it comes to inserting a pre-header into your campaign, all you have to do is go to settings, scroll all the way down, and here you can simply enter it, and that's going to reflect once you send out your campaign. So I'm just going to come up with something really quickly. I'm doing perfect deals for my cat shop, and as you can see, that's fine. You can also use this magic wand, which generates automatic pre-headers if you're out of inspiration and really need a little push figuring out what you can put there. You can generate a pre-header. You can do many, many things with these options. Now, onto the rules. This essentially allows you to create spaces. Now, what that does, for example, that I have this little template, but I want to insert a bigger title here. I can simply drag and drop. Now what that does is it creates a space for me to add different types of elements into it. I can pick out a space with 1 slot, 2 slots. I can personalize it to my liking. For example, let's say I want to add multiple pictures at once. I can pick one like this and just fill up the different spaces. But for example here, and if let's say you're not happy with the way it turns out, or you misclick, then you import it by accident, you can simply click on it and select the trash bin. Now I'm gonna go back and I'm just gonna quickly import. I'm gonna drop it here. Now what I can do is I can go to content and I can pick out different elements. Now the cool thing with this little editor is that it's all drag and drop. So let's say you like something, I wanna, for example, insert a video. I'm just gonna drop that here. I can obviously pick out different things. I can add buttons, I can create paragraphs, images. I'm just gonna go, for example, for a title. Just sort of as an introduction. And as you play around with it, you will get the grip of it. You will understand what goes with what. For example, this might look a little weird. So we're just gonna remove that one and start from scratch. I'm gonna drop ones and I'm gonna put it there. As you can see, I can pick different things. I can add a spacer in between my different elements. Say, for example, you want a bigger space, you have two articles and you want to space them out so people can tell the difference. You can do that as well. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna select a video. The cool thing about videos is that you just have to click and then you can just insert any URL you wish to add. Let's say, for example, I have one already. I'm just gonna copy and paste it, and that's gonna show up once I add it. As you can see, I've added this, and now I can see the video. I can obviously play around with the settings. I can have a round outline for the box, a square solid, just anything of the source. Just essentially play around with it. You can also change its color, the size, the padding, just play around with it. I'm gonna add right next to that a little list because as we've talked about earlier, lists can be fun to add. I can add different elements. This is an ordered list. I can add different elements to it. And so on. You can just essentially play around with it. And as you can see, I can modify things. I can align them, I can center them, I can put different line heights in between them. Just essentially the same way you would with any other editor. Just again, we've talked about it earlier, but it's really important that you stick with your brand consistency. If you have a more fun approach to your campaign, to your vision, then you can keep your newsletter more lighthearted. If you're a more serious brand, then maybe go with more serious fonts, more serious colors, all kinds of elements like these. You can add titles, paragraphs, images. Now, the cool thing with images is that you can simply browse. We have stock pictures available that you can just click on and go search free pictures. Let's say, for example, I want cats, because that's the theme of the day. I can just select this one and import. As you can see, I have this little picture library where I can upload from my computer, I can import from somewhere else. It's just really, it's really practical because it really allows you to have everything in one place. You no longer have to go look out for everything. Now, as you can see, I have this picture, but it's awfully big. So I'm just gonna click on it. As you can see, it's on auto width, but I can just make it smaller. And once I'm satisfied with it, I can align it here to the left, to the right, whichever really suits my needs. You can also add visual effects to it. And if you want to change the pictures altogether, you can just press change image and that's going to change it. And again, you can either have full width, auto width, or adjust to your liking. Now, I'm not going to go over all the different elements. Again, that would kind of spoil the fun. The nice part about your content creation is that you can just play around with it. You can add different elements, different buttons, different pictures, and so on, different titles. But I just really want to get your attention here to this HTML code. Now, the thing with HTML codes is that if you're good at them, you can simply click here and modify them. That's a very cool feature that really allows you to play around with it, especially if you have some notions with HTML coding, then you can pretty much design it to your liking and for it to fit your vision better. But again, we really just recommend sticking to designer templates because, as I've said earlier, they're pre-designed and they already have a defined display on all kinds of email providers. Now, quickly, I just want to grab your attention and show you how to add personalization. Say, for example, I want to send out a campaign to these new subscribers and I want to be referring to them by their names. I can just go here and I can use merge tags. Okay, well, you can also just write it like this. For example, hello plus name, latest offers. And if you're happy with it, you can just select, change the colors again, just play around. As you can see, I already have my setup colors. I can make the font bigger and I can center it or I can put it to the right. I can change the font altogether. It all depends on what you want to do and what you want to achieve. And once you're satisfied somewhat with your different elements, let's say, for example, I've added my socials. Now, this is a really cool feature. I just had to share it with you all. I'm just gonna add my socials. For example, my Instagram account, my Facebook account, I can just click on them and I can import my URL and people are just gonna be able to click on it and directly be redirected to it. And once you're satisfied with it and you've entered things, you can add new icons. For example, if you're using Discord, if you're using something else, you can also add it. And once you're done with it and you have all your socials saved up, you can just save your column. Here, as you can see, that's the little disk that allows me to save my blocks. Now, what this does is essentially it creates a block that you can reuse in future templates or future campaigns. For example, I'm just gonna name it socials, all my social media links. And I can add a tag just to remember what that's like. Social. Now, next time I decide, for example, that I want to add a row, I can just go to my saved rows and it's gonna show me my socials. And now I no longer have to enter manually a link every single time. I can just select that one and I will have access to it all the time. Obviously, you can duplicate your rows, you can do anything with that. Once you get somewhat of a satisfied, once you're satisfied with everything, here's a really cool feature. You can click on the little eye, and that's gonna work as a preview. That's gonna allow you to see what your email looks like when it's sent. For example, here, as you can see, let's say I'm satisfied with it. Okay, I like the way that looks on desktop. Now I need to check on mobile. I can just look and scroll up and down, try out the different links, the different buttons, and check out the dark mode as well. For example, here all the colors have turned somewhat darker and the titles are lighter. I'm just gonna scroll down. And in my desktop, that's also gonna be somewhat the same. As you can see, I just scroll up and down. Obviously, it all depends on the way you're using your content and your different colors. That's why we really recommend just playing around with it. Try out different combinations and see what looks more readable and what looks the best for your contacts. Now, once that's all done, do not forget you can just press save and continue. Now, we've talked about it earlier. Now, since I have an empty list, you're not going to be able to see a name. Say, for example, I have a category of a field in my contact list with name, last name, or so on. It would automatically show with the proper name. Now, once you're satisfied with it, you can just come up, write a subject line that you can also generate using AI. You can name your campaign, that's for yourself, just sort of as a reminder that this template was for this and that. For example, kitty cat draft. Now, no one's gonna be seeing that one, but it's just for me to remember. In the subject line, you can click on generate subject, and the more content you have, the more details you have on your subject, the better it's gonna be and the more appropriate it will be. For example, explore discounts and free shipping at Kitty Cat. Here you can pick out your list, you can pick out your interests and segments. And here, very important, your sender. You need to make sure that your domain is authenticated for it to show properly. For example, here the name that's gonna show is Kitty Cat, and this is the sending address that's gonna follow it. Now, the different details on how and when to send it, and when you're satisfied with it, you can just press send a campaign. Although we always recommend sending a few tests before because it really allows you to see what that looks like once it's sent. So remember, testing, making sure that it displays properly are crucial when it comes to sending out your campaign. Now, I think we've gone over most things, and I'm just going to take a little moment just to show you where you can authenticate your domain. Here, by clicking on Sender, you have access to all your senders and all your domains. Now, if you want a legitimate sender that is approved, you can just add sender and authenticate it, and that's gonna make sure that whoever is receiving your campaign knows that it's coming from you and that you're a legitimate sender. Now, that'll be all for me, but if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. We have a few webinars that are coming up in the future, and we have an amazing support team that will be more than happy to answer all of your questions anytime. That will be all for me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Selma. It was a pleasure having you. So we'll keep this recording and send it to you. And we'll restart the webinar soon. So keep on looking on our website to know what are the next topics and next webinars. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.